And we're live.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to this week's episode of Choosing Us. It is by and large our favorite type of episode where we bring on our friends, bring on guests to share with you their perspective, their journeys, and how they got to where they are. We have with us
Brad and Angel, and I am so excited for them to introduce themselves.
So a little bit precursor to that, Brad and Brad. He's Brad number one. I'm Brad number two. We go to a lot of events and we've kind of associated that way. There's actually three of us and we met last November. So it's been almost a year and we met at a men's group and we see each other a lot. We're in a lot of the same networking groups. So we just kind of got to know each other and got to get a feel for each other. We mountain bike together. We hang out quite a bit. And then I met Angel. He brought his dear wife to a breakfast. Not sure if you remember this, Angel. And we talked conspiracy theories for like 2 hours.
That's the best.
And it was glorious. And then we've kind of started intermingling our two marriages, go on dates and such. So Brad and Angel, welcome to the show. If you'd like to give a brief interview about you guys and give our audience a feel for who you are.
Cool. I'll start. I'm Angel. Brad and I have been married for 23 years. We've got 4 children, ages 22, 20, 11, and 5. And I like to always make that introduction because Brad doesn't remember how old our kids are.
Get him close.
He gets close. I'm always correcting him. Anyway, so yeah, we have 3 daughters and a son. And we live in Lehi, Utah. We've moved about 30 times in our 23 years of marriage. And let's see what else. We both work from home. And our youngest 2 are currently in school. So we have some quiet days. So it's very nice.
Yep. That's awesome.
Pass it over to you.
And I'm Brad. And all the things you just said are accurate and I endorse. And what we do for Angel is the queen of customer service. She actually worked for about a decade for Chatbooks, and she's had many, many incredible clients across the Utah front. We've got a couple that are national companies that she's worked for, and I do executive coaching, and we're best friends. So
that we are.
Oh, I love that.
That's most important.
I love that you put that in because yes, that is most important. Makes it work.
Indeed. So yeah.
Share with us a little bit about the early days. And you guys got an age gap with your kids.
Yes.
You got older and you got younger. We pretty much just got younger. You got the intermix of the two, and how that kind of has meshed you into who you are.
Yeah. So I'll start with I guess I'll start with how we met, and we'll have fun going back and forth on this because we have different points of view. But I was 14, he was 15. I liked his best friend, and at the time, Clueless.
She hadn't met me yet.
Yeah, I haven't met him yet. Clueless, the movie, was like my favorite movie. I idolized Cher, and decided to try that out because his best friend was new in our school, and it was like the perfect opportunity to put these tips to work. So I decided to get him to try to like me, and he did not. And okay, so then I'll let you go from there.
Well, he didn't, not because she wasn't amazing. He didn't because he was a wrestler and he wanted to focus on academics and wrestling. That was all he wanted. He wanted to get into a wrestling school, wanted a scholarship, and he's like, I don't have time for a girlfriend or distraction. And so we went to a dance. We went to different schools at the time. And so we went to a dance and we were going to find this girl, and I was going to go tell her to like chill out and lay off because he's just not that into you. And and so we went. We couldn't find this girl that we were looking for, and so we went back. We had a break dancing group that would always like do the circle, push everybody out, and we were out doing our thing, and then all of a sudden I saw this girl, and she was so hot. And I was like, dude, check out this chick. And he's like, that's her. And I was like, what? Are you crazy, man? That's the hottest girl I've ever seen. And he's like, I just want to get into a college, man. And I'm like, can I go dance with her? And he's like, by all means. So I went and introduced myself, but apparently my reputation preceded me.
Yeah, I knew who he was, and he had a reputation of a player, and I was not about to be played. And I have so many journal entries of how he was like making out with freshmen and all of that kind of stuff. But but we were in seminary and 2 choirs together, so we spent about 3 hours a day in the same room with each other. And I like to flirt, but I was very guarded, so it took him a while to get me to agree to date him, but I did at the age of 16. I finally gave in. It lasted 2 weeks because he tried to hold my hand, and that was just too fast. So I broke it off with him. I know, right?
She was a very, very a good girl.
I was a good girl.
Yeah.
So
don't you dare touch my hand.
Yeah. I was like, what is happening? So yeah.
I saw her ankles.
So I broke it off, but we had to get over the awkwardness because we still were together for at least 3 hours a day. And so we quickly became friends again and stayed really close until he went on his mission and I went to college. And we actually went to college around almost the exact same time you went on your mission.
Yep.
I told him that I was not going to be there when he got home because I would definitely be married by then. Yeah. But I dated a lot of guys and we wrote pretty much the whole time. And I realized after probably 6 months to a year that no other guys that I dated were ever like him and that they didn't care about me the way that he cared about me. And so I did at one point Dear John him, and that's because his player reputation came back in a vengeance. And
to haunt me.
yeah, I had heard rumors that he was sending girls flowers on his mission and writing them love letters, which he had done for me. And
I have to caveat that my mom, so I grew up in a funeral home, so we had very close ties and relationships with the flower shops. And I had written in a letter asking my mom to send Angel flowers for her birthday, which she did. So that was where that came from. But there were other girls saying that I had sent them flowers, which was not true. I had not sent any other girls flowers on my mission. So
I prayed about it and felt really strongly like I needed to tell him that he needs to focus on his mission and we need to just stop writing for a while and just trust God no matter what happens. And I was dating a guy at the time, but I broke up with him quickly after that because he was a douchebag. And so after the Dear John, all of a sudden, a few months later, I started thinking about Brad nonstop. And I was like, what the heck? You told me to Dear John him. And now all I can do is think about him and how amazing he is. And I was really frustrated with God that it was like such a huge shift. And I was like, you told me one thing, and I guarantee you that these thoughts are coming from you. Like I knew that it wasn't just me being silly. So I started writing him again, and my mom apparently wrote him a letter after I wrote him a Dear John and was like, don't give up. She really loved Brad. She still does, but he was her favorite. So anyway, we started writing again. My parents got a call to be mission presidents in Rome, and I wrote Brad a letter saying, well, he had just told me that he was extending his mission, which I thought was very rude. And because I was starting to plan things in my head of how they could work out. And but then my parents were called to go on a mission, and I realized that if he extended his mission, I don't think that we'd have time to get married before they left. So I wrote a letter that was kind of like carrot on a stick and told him that I was really sad that my parents were going to miss my marriage, whoever my future husband might be, and that I was really upset about that. And so he wrote back to me, and you can say this part because you say it really cute.
I just wrote back and said, well, if I lived in a perfect world, I'd come home. I was coming home in March. They were leaving in June.
You were coming home end of March, and they were leaving in June, yeah.
Yeah, they were leaving in June. And so I said, if I lived in a perfect world, I'd come home in March and we'd get married just before they leave in June, which was very fast. And we had never spoken about marriage or anything like that.
Kind of.
But I kind of just like threw it out there, like,
Full send.
okay.
Full
Yep,
send.
full
Yeah,
send.
full
We're gonna find out.
We're gonna burn the
right?
ships.
And she wrote back and said, I'm so glad you feel that way. I feel the same way. And I said, okay, plan the marriage.
Yeah.
So I came home. I ended up coming home a couple weeks early because an elder had come down with leukemia, and my mission president asked me if I would be willing to assist him back to the U.S. So I came home a couple weeks early and proposed 2 weeks later officially, and
we got married May 11th. It was very fast.
I was home March 17th.
Those
we got
were the
married May
days
11th.
before Pinterest, and so weddings and wedding receptions just weren't that great. And did a whole lot of planning. I have a lot of regrets.
So that's our origin story.
Yes. So
that's amazing.
yeah. So do you want me to keep going on the kids, or do you have questions?
Let's do
about
it.
that? Because it was kind of long.
Yeah, well, I
No,
love it.
you're
I
good.
want to hear because obviously when you had your first kids, the way you parented, the way your relationship was when you first started figuring out how to be a parent, and then how that's transitioned to your younger kids, because I know, unfortunately, as you get more kids, then you figure out a little bit better way to do it as you get more and more. So I want to know how that transition was and how your relationship was when you first got married, because obviously that was really fast, and then going into having kids, but then how that's changed to now having kids.
Do you want to answer that?
Sure. And I'll remind you, it was kind of fast on the when we actually finally got engaged, but there was 6 years of
Right.
coming to know each other. So
Except that when you marry somebody, you don't actually
You have no
really
idea.
know them.
No.
once we got married, it was like, well, what have I gotten into? But we've worked through all that. So we had our first couple kids, no problems, just, had our first couple.
They're 22 months apart.
Yep.
Got married in May, got pregnant in December, had her in September, and then 22 months later, had our second.
And then we decided we wanted to have maybe around 5-6 kids. We wanted to have them pretty quickly so that as we got older, we could just be done and kids are out and we're off to see the world.
The goal was to have all the kids out by 40 and be able to retire millionaires. That was our plan.
That's what we told God was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then he told us that that's not what's going to happen.
He told you what was going to happen.
Yeah.
After our second was born, we fell upon infertility issues, and we went. We start off with some of the basic stuff that you just go to the doctors, and it's kind of like, well, let's try this or that, and nothing worked. And all the testing they did, they went and tested testosterone levels, they tested all the different levels, and they're like, everything looks normal. It's unexplained. And that's all they had for us was it's unexplained. We have no idea. Can't tell you anything. Sorry, it's not working out. So we finally, with our son, in vitro was quite expensive, and we didn't make the kind of money to be able to afford in vitro. But through a couple miracles, we were able to raise the funds and get the ability to do that. And so we did, and we got our son, Charlie. But unfortunately with that, we didn't end up with extras to freeze and do subsequent rounds and try to go for the 6 kids we wanted to. But, we know that there's many people out there who go through this problem and never get any. And so we feel so incredibly blessed through our journey that we were able to get Charlie out of that. And we said 3. I mean, how amazing, how blessed are we? 3 kids, like awesome. And then a few years after Charlie was born, Angel had she had had a really incredible dream that told her Charlie was going to join our family. And she had another experience after Charlie and that said, there's another one coming. And we were like, what? Like, no way. There's just no way. And we went through a series of miracles and other.
You're skipping so much.
Okay, go ahead. I'll stop because I'm going too fast, but I don't want to miss the important pieces that will help those who are listening.
Yeah. So we did in vitro twice after Charlie. Lots of miracles happening to get us to allow us to be able to have the funds to do that. And we really felt like this is it, especially based on the miracles that happened. His mom passed away. Had a conversation the night before she died unexpectedly, and she was like, we gotta do in vitro again, you gotta try everything. And I was like, I just don't know if I can do it emotionally. It's so hard to fail and fail and fail. And so she passed away, so I was like, I have to do it now. That was our last conversation.
That was like the very last.
Yeah.
And she was healthy. She was healthy, so it wasn't like this wheezed conversation while she's on her deathbed. She was healthy. She was going in for a routine surgery, and unfortunately, it didn't turn out the way we hoped. But
so we did in vitro and thought for sure, just like the miracles that happened with Charlie's in vitro, I thought for sure it's going to work out, and it didn't. And that was probably the lowest of lows that I've been at, probably we've been at, just because we really felt like God was saying, this is it, and we really had our faith in that, and it didn't work out. And then the results were basically, there's no way that you can have any more. There's just absolutely no way.
And the way that the funds came to, like,
yeah.
I don't have time for the full story, but essentially a dear friend of ours showed up, said, hey, I know that your mom passed away. I'm sure you guys have financial burden from it. We said, actually, no, my mom's family helped out. And he said, well, why am I getting this deep impression? I said, well, we're trying to raise some funds for some in vitro, but we'd never ask we're still $8,000 shy. Like, we would never ask for that. But if you want to make a donation, that would be awesome. He showed up the next night with a check for the full amount and said, God wants you to have this. It was like holy cow. So there was all these doors opening that led us to this conclusion that yes, of course it's going to work out, because obviously the Lord has opened all the doors and made the path. So there's no way that this isn't going to work. And then we went and did the full round, which is a month worth of infertility treatment. And then they got to the point where they do what's called the trigger shot. And they said, oh, unfortunately, the numbers don't look good. Let's do another round, which meant another huge check of money that we had to figure out. Figured it out, did the next round, got to the end of that month, and the doctors said, oh no, the numbers haven't changed.
They're That's not true. They said, said, let's do it. So we did it. Sorry, Brad has a brain injury and his mind doesn't remember everything. Legit, I'm not being mean.
No, she's not being mean. Severe bike accident. That's another podcast episode.
Anyway, so we did in vitro. I love you. I'm sorry.
I love you.
And it didn't work. And it was just like the shock of all shocks. Like we were just, our whole core was shaking. Like
it literally broke Angel.
It did. It was so hard. And they were like, this didn't work. Nothing will work. You're done. Like you're literally done. So I really struggled with that. At the same time, we also had a really good friend that accidentally got pregnant and decided to have an abortion. It was the same week that our in vitro failed. And it was just like, can I kick you while you're down? And I really felt like okay, what am I supposed to learn here? Like, there's clearly some sort of lesson that I'm supposed to learn here, because through it all, I know that God loves me, and that is something that I can hold on to. I know without a doubt that He loves me. And so when hard things happen and as you just don't understand what's going on, like, at least hold on to that and know that God loves you, and let things kind of blow over a little bit. My dad always says, don't make any navigational decisions amidst the storm. And, and I felt like that was really good for that. But also, like, I might not know everything, but I know that God loves me. And so I really took that, went to some therapy, and really got into a place where I was okay not having more children, and just trying to, it was a lot. It was a lot of grieving for not just the fact that I really felt like I was supposed to have this little girl that was in my dreams, that had blessings about it. Like, I knew she was supposed to come to our family. So it didn't make any sense of why the in vitro wouldn't work, and so I got to a point where I could be happy and just say, at some point, I'll figure it out. At some point, I will understand, even if it's in the next life. And then a good friend of ours, our neighbor of ours, came over one time when we were really, really struggling with this. And it was around Christmas time and maybe Thanksgiving, something like that. And they had gone through a lot of infertility too, and a lot of miscarriages and such. And so we were kind of explaining our situation and why we were feeling the way that we were. And he, I was kind of explaining to him that we're all about affirmations and the law of attraction and The Secret, and like read every possible book there is to like make this come true, right? And it was just like, if you can have enough faith, then you can have whatever you want. Like, that was basically what everything said. And it was just like, I have had faith. Like, there were times where I was so sure that it was going to happen, and then it didn't. So, like, where's the disconnect here? Like, help me understand that. And he said something that was just so pivotal for me. And he said that, see if I can quote it correctly, but he said, you have to have faith in Christ regardless of the result, instead of having faith in the result. And that to me was just like this huge shift that, like, I've been doing it wrong this whole time. I've been having so much faith that we would get pregnant, like, and just like,
if we do the things, if we
yeah,
go to church, read our scriptures, pray,
bargain with God,
do all the
everything
things,
right, and
you'll get blessed.
Yeah, and like, it's gonna happen, and just to realize that the faith needs to be in Christ regardless of the result, and that was a huge shift for me. So I got to the.
Let me add too. So in that, the outcome being, instead of going to church, read your scriptures, pray, do all the things so that you will be blessed, rather do all those things for the sake of Christ. Because in the last days or whatever, when we're at the judgment, we will be able to be so blessed because we followed and did the things that they wanted us to do,
regardless of
the outcome.
The outcome. So yeah, I got the other thing too that I've really tried in my life with our trials is to find joy even in our trials. And that is something that I feel like it can be really, really hard, because trials suck and we all hate them. But I feel like if you can find joy in the journey, and really be okay with that, whatever the result is, that that your life is happier, your marriage is happier, your kids are happier. Like, it's so much better. So yeah, I got to that point where I was like, okay, one, I'm done, like, not done, but I've got the grieving of not having a fourth child and not having that little girl that I wanted. And then also grieving that, like, my body and my purpose is no longer to bear children. That was probably even harder for me than just not having that fourth child, was being okay with, like, what do I even do with myself now? I'm no longer a child bearer. I'm no longer in the mode of how do I get pregnant? It's more of I need to eat healthy for myself, not for a child that I'm going to bear. Like that was really hard for me. And understanding that now I'm going to focus on raising my children and aging like that. I felt like the childbearing age is still young. And so if you're like, I'm done with that, then it's kind of like, well, now all I have to do is get old. And I don't want to do that. So that was probably harder to process for me than it was that we weren't going to be able to have another child. Although they go hand in hand, of course. But
I'm sure if your listeners or watchers watching this, they're looking at this going, she's like 20 years old. Like, what the heck are they talking? So they're like, well, Brad's obviously like 50.
No.
I'm 44. But Angel's only a year younger than me at 43. So just so that those watchers who are looking going, she looks crazy young, because she does. She has incredible beauty. Anyway, I wanted to clarify that just for those who are confused.
I love that you guys pointed out the difference of acute pain and trial and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Acute pain, trial, those are circumstantial, right? They're external things. Sometimes they're internal in our body, but they're still things in the world, whereas suffering is a choice. You don't have to suffer just because you go through pain. And how much we learn that through acute pain. The other side of acute pain is absolute pleasure. And recognizing that it's just for a brief moment. So I love that. That's what I kind of gathered from what you guys just said.
Well, and one thing that I want to hear about as well is we do have some viewers or listeners and friends who have gone through infertility and how hard that is for you, Angel, as the woman. But how did that affect your relationship in that time? Like, were you able to lean on each other, or did you kind of distance yourself to, go inward? Did you guys have, trial through that in your relationship to figure out a way to cope as a couple through those hard times?
I would say that there were definitely cycles, and I have been blessed, honestly, in my life to recognize the adversary pretty quickly. And so, at times, and I think anybody that's going through true infertility can agree that it's not the same the whole time, especially when you're dealing with like 18 years of it, and some people are like, oh, you just got to stop trying and then then you'll get pregnant. And it's like, I seriously have not tried every single month for 18 years. I promise. Like, there are cycles in infertility because you have to take breaks. But there were times when I felt like, what's the point of having sex? What's the point? Because we can't get pregnant. And I'm so tired of trying emotionally that I just kind of turned off my libido and was like, I can't. What's the point? But then it's like, okay, I understand that there's more than one purpose for sex, obviously. And there's also different types of intimacy and different levels of intimacy. And so I think through different cycles, different times, different seasons of our infertility, because we had the infertility between our second and third, and then between our third and our fourth. And so, yeah, I feel like most of the time we were really close and united. And I feel like Brad probably struggled more internally because he didn't want to put his suffering on me because he knew I was suffering enough already. So I feel like he probably suffered more internally than I did. But he was very, very supportive and tried all the crazy diets and all the nasty herbs. And, we all went through the acupuncture and all of the different things together as a couple. And I'm very grateful that he was always willing to try things when I was ready to try, but he also didn't push me too hard when I needed a break.
I think something that Angel said in there is really important for the husbands that might be dealing with infertility, like a wife that's not being able to get pregnant. And in our case, the only real factor they found was actually with me. And so, but it wasn't big enough of a factor that they said this is the smoking gun. This is why you're not getting pregnant. They said it could be. And so obviously that puts a lot of pressure as a husband, a lot of stress, especially when you see your wife suffer and struggle and going through this over and over. Um, but but what Angel was saying about the need for the husband to, I'm trying to remember exactly how you said it, but it's the need for the husband to understand that your wife's libido may go down. And as men, we're like always hot to trot, ready to go. But the struggling and the suffering that your wife may be going through, it's not a reflection of her love for you. It has nothing to do with that. It is her heart is breaking because women are wired in a way that they so badly want to fulfill that divine creation of being able to bring children into this world. And when that's not happening, and there's all these questions in their head and all these things going on, the intimacy becomes a triggering point to break their hearts more. It's not that they don't love you. It's not that they don't want to be close to you. It's that it's almost a, I'm trying not to use the word pain point because I don't want it, it's not physical pain, obviously, but there is a heartbreaking element to it. And as you can be patient and understand that and supportive and try to see it from that perspective, I hope that it will open your hearts a little bit more to be closer and to find new ways to connect that you can just listen and be able to connect from that standpoint. So
Now, Brad, how is this something that like you learned after the fact, that after you went through this, or is this like a mindset that you had throughout the infertility, or was this a realization afterwards?
I would say we grew together in it. I'm so grateful that Angel is a great communicator. We've always been able, I mean, it's rare that we have big spats or stuff, even when we're disagreeing on things. Um, we're pretty good to communicate through things. And as she would share her feelings, I think coming from that mindset standpoint, we were able to work together to come to understandings. And there were many conversations where I didn't understand. And I'd say, well, is this what you're trying to get at? She's like, no, you're totally missing it. And I'm like, okay, you mean this? And she's like, no, that's not it at all. So it took some tender conversations and some time to understand. But now being on this end of where we are done with our family and we are now just saying, hey, we do have our 4 kids. That I don't think we ended up getting to the end of the story, which was 6 months later.
After we tried the in vitro, yeah, it was about 5 months later that we got pregnant naturally.
Yeah, we did end up getting pregnant naturally. Mm-hmm. And,
the shock of the world.
And everyone's like, oh, see, if you just quit trying.
I was like, curse you.
Trust me, it's when you quit trying for the sake of quitting trying, you haven't quit trying.
There's always still a hope.
There's always a hope, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's a very, very dynamic and difficult situation when you're dealing with infertility. But I want everybody listening to know that our hearts go out to you. Everybody's story is different. Every situation is unique. And whatever your case may be, that just know that there's people out there that understand what you're going through and how hard it is. And our hearts are there with you.
Yeah, I love that. Going on after she was born, I know you had mentioned that you had this idea beforehand of you were going to have these kids and, be 40 and millionaires and starting this retirement life. And now where you are now, I know you guys are in a different phase with businesses. and with the struggles and trials of business and
little kids.
little kids and older kids. And how
Yeah.
has that transition been for your marriage?
We had my oldest had her senior pictures on the same day and by the same photographer as we did newborn pictures for our youngest. So that was a really fun day to see, you know, just kind of that difference in timelines and celebrations in different ways. It's been, honestly, it's been the biggest blessing to have older children to help with their younger children. And it's not something I ever planned on, but it's something that I'm so grateful for. Um, it's definitely, we hear constantly of like, are you going to let them do that? Did you know that he's doing this right now? You know, like almost every day. It's the older ones, you know, the younger two have three moms, and you know, it's very funny. So yeah, it's definitely a different dynamic than we were expecting, but I do think that you know, it's better than the plan that we had originally. We feel younger than we are because of our young children, and it's kind of funny when I go to little birthday parties or things for my kids, and I'm like, oh, I'm the old person here now, you know, and the moms are all in their 20s and stuff, and I'm like, okay, you could be my daughter. This is great. So yeah, it's definitely different, but I think it's awesome, and we love it, and we are so grateful that even though we still have kids at home and we still both work, we feel like we have the ability to do things more together than we did back when we had the first two, or you know, that kind of thing, because we just have a lot more freedom and a lot more options because we have babysitters built in. And it's, yeah, while there is the dynamic of our older kids wanting to parent our younger kids, it's we're also to the point, and I think a lot of parents get this way with the younger ones, where you just don't care what they think. It's just like, sorry, this is how we're doing it. So I don't know if it's a better way necessarily. Usually it is.
I think as you get older and you have more kids, you start to realize that like all the things that you stress over, that you freak out about, that you're constantly hovering over your kids.
Mhm.
Like we always joke that we have two families, and people are like, same marriage? And like, yes, it's all the same marriage, same. So we have our two older ones, and then we have our two younger ones. And with our two younger ones, what we've realized is like, take a deep breath, let it, like, don't be so concerned at the level that I think we were in our 20s and 30s about, oh my gosh, if my kid does this, they're going to turn out weird or they're going to be screwed up. But rather, like, having a curiosity of why your child is having that reaction, why they're, you know, getting down to their level and speaking to them, rather than what I did when I was younger, which was a folly of my own, was I would just yell. That was how I was raised. Just yell and yell it out of them. Like, correct it, tell them how the right way to be is, and they'll do it. Now with our younger ones, I definitely have a much gentler approach where I like to be more curious, or we just let them, like, the fighting. Oh man, our older ones, they fought all the time. We'd yell and knock it off and go to the corner. Our two younger ones, they still have the same follies and fights and squabbles. And we're just like, work it out, figure it out. We don't get in the middle of it as much, just because we know that they're going to work it out. They're going to figure things out. And they do. Would you agree?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that you yell all the time, because I don't really allow that in our home.
Well, when I was younger,
Yeah.
I was just an idiot.
It's interesting that as you age and as you parent, as Michaela has pointed out, as you guys have alluded, you learn new ways, you learn new things, and you learn the things that you cared about don't actually matter. And that was a big dynamic with me to my older brother, because we're 10 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
But we have that with our two even, and they're not even that far apart. They're 2.5 years apart. And things we did with our oldest, we don't do with our youngest. And we've learned to kind of let things go and let them
Mhm.
learn and let them fall and let them get hurt. And an adage that I think it's a common adage, but apparently it's not, which is you can't prevent your kids from getting punched in the face, but you can give them a pillow.
Yeah.
You can allow life to hit them,
Mm-hmm.
but you can soften the blows a little bit, but you can't stop the blows. The blows
Yeah.
are coming no matter what.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
learning that sooner rather than later. And yeah, sure, give them a pillow or two, but the blows are coming, so you might as well stop worrying about it so much.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
No doubt. And I will say that Zig Ziglar, I love his quote. He said, "Don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff." And I think if you can take that, one thing that we talked about before coming in here that we wanted to also uh, talk about is if you are struggling in your marriage, if you're having some fights, you're, the squabbles, but it feels like it's even more than squabbles. One of the biggest things that helped us was we, I don't even remember how we came to this understanding, but that we're on the same team. We both wear a jersey that says Brockbanks on the back of it. We're on the same team. So rather than being across the table from one another and trying to prove our point versus their point, stepping around and standing on the same side of the table as my wife and saying, "Hey, let's figure this out together so that we can hit the common goal rather than fighting on opposing sides."
And understanding that our opposition is truly the adversary, and Satan does everything he can to get in between us. And so, with infertility, with financial issues, with parenting, with whatever it is that you're struggling with, he's going to try to find a way to get you to fight against each other. And if you can remember that you're on the same team and you're fighting against Satan together, then it's a lot easier to recognize that you really have the other person's best interest in mind, and that we're both really working together against that, and that's what's helped us a lot.
Yep.
I love that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was amazing. That was great. We came right to the end there, and you guys just nailed it. That was honestly, like, I love your perspective, and especially through the infertility, through all the different things that you guys have been through, and growing closer together and being able to stay united and stay on the same team. And that is rare nowadays. That's harder to find. Couples,
Yeah.
it's not normal to really see couples that you're like, yeah, we don't really fight. I mean, Brad and I tell people that we're like, yeah, we don't really ever fight. We've been married 10 years, never had a big fight. And people are just blown away. They're like,
Yeah.
how is that even possible? Because they're so focused and it's put in their face from the world that that's normal. And
Mm-hmm.
I love getting your guys' perspective on that and seeing another couple that it is out there and it is possible for couples to have these beautiful relationships where you're married to your best friend and you're on the same team, and everything is a little thing. They're small, the fights, the arguments, the disagreements, it's all small in reality.
Yeah.
And as long as you can realize that at the end, you're on the same team. And I love that you said that.
We usually close things off with what's one nugget that you can add to everybody,
But I think you gave like 10.
but
So
you already gave a bajillion nuggets.
that was amazing.
There you go.
We actually do have one thing that I'll send you to send in the show notes. We don't have time to cover it, but it's some notes from a early on. Angel took me to a marriage retreat, and I was like, "Why'd you sign us up for a marriage retreat? Those are for like broken marriage people." And but I went unwillingly. I went, and boy, did I get some of the best advice that I had ever been given. What was that? 3-4 years in?
Yeah, probably 4 years in.
4 years in.
Yeah.
So I had done plenty to screw it up. And this guy helped me figure out what I was doing wrong. So I'm going to send you those. If your listeners will look in the show notes, I'll let you guys add those in there. There's some really cool nuggets of do's and don'ts that from the men's perspective, mostly, how to help a woman feel truly safe, secure, and loved. So we'll give you those nuggets to add to the show for later.
Yeah. If you
Yes.
like enough, we can do another podcast.
Yes, let's do another episode. We can dive right on into it too, but we would love to add that. So thank you
Cool.
guys so much.
You
We
bet.
recognize your time is valuable. We're grateful for you. We love you. And we love to learn from you guys and grow from you guys. We are in very similar situations and very different situations at the exact same time. And how beautiful it is. And we're grateful for the example that you share. It is seen by way more people than you can comprehend. And it is truly appreciated. So, with that said, share this episode with your friends, your family, your loved ones. That's the only way it grows. We grow organically. So, until next week, like this thing, subscribe to it, download it for future listenings. We love you guys. Bye.